and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hello, I'm Helen Leathers, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Tom Dillon. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning, Helen. I am extremely well, thank you very much.
Good. Is that just because you've eaten a biscuit?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still got a bit stuck between my teeth.
Thank you for sharing. Lovely. Would you also like to share what we're talking about today?
Today we are talking about critical thinking.
Critical thinking. I think that's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot. But when you really stop to think about it, what does it actually mean? And how does it play out in the coaching?
I think it means thinking critically.
Thank you for that.
Well, let's define it. Critical thinking, often described as the ability to think clearly, rationally, and independently, and involves questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, and making reasoned judgments.
That sounds fair enough.
Yeah.
So why do you think this is important in coaching?
Great question.
I'm good at those.
So obviously in coaching, we're often faced with coaches who have lots of thoughts and emotions around particular issues or challenge. Quite often, those thoughts and emotions have been whirling for a while, so they're not, and they've been ruminating, and they've maybe told themselves a story, and it's all kind of built up into something big that they've never actually expressed to anyone else. So when they come to the coaching room, they tell us what they think is going on. But, some of the thinking they'll have done might well be unhelpful. So obviously, if they are able to engage in some critical thinking during the coaching, it helps them to dig beneath the surface a little bit and understand what's really going on. So for us as coaches, it's not just about asking questions, but it's helping them as coachees to explore the roots of what they're choosing to believe, the story they're choosing to tell themselves, thinking about their assumptions and decisions that they're contemplating.
And it's about encouraging them to think beyond the obvious, isn't it? When someone walks into the coaching room with a challenge, it's easy just to accept things at face value. But we do need to help them to explore the why behind their thoughts and their actions.
Yeah, I know. I think it's one of the big sort of barriers we face as coaches, actually, that we only hear their story. So sometimes their story can sound quite reasonable, and it can sound like it's everybody else's fault. And if we just took that at face value, we might never solve the problem because they're not presenting a true account, a real account. They're just seeing it from their perspective. So I think it's definitely one of the elements is to look at what's real, question those assumptions that people are making, or just finding out what is an assumption in what they're saying.
Like when someone comes in saying, I'm not good enough for that promotion, or I'll never be able to make that change.
Yeah, and often those are assumptions that have never been challenged by anyone else, and they've never stopped to challenge them for themselves. But, what sits behind those beliefs? What evidence is there to support the beliefs? And more importantly, what might be possible if they didn't believe that?
Yes.
So if we take that example, challenging the assumption, I'm not good enough, we can open up more possibilities. So I was coaching a doctor just last week who said that she was experiencing imposter syndrome and had that constant feeling of not being good enough. That was what she said. I just feel like I'm not actually good enough. So something I did, very solution focused, but just said to her, okay, let's think about this. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is I'm rubbish at this and 10 is I'm brilliant at it, where are you? And she said, well, I've just had some feedback. Before I had the feedback, I'd have said 6 or 7. Now I've had the feedback, I'm saying 8. I said, so you're an 8 out of 10. And even before the feedback, you were at least a 6 out of 10 for something that you're saying, well, I'm not good enough. I said, so what makes you a 6 and not a 1? And she said, and she listed all these things she was doing brilliantly. And so, like, very affirmative exercise for her to do. I said, okay, so you've just listed all those things that you say you're doing really. How does that relate to what you said earlier about not being good enough?
Yeah, what's that number?
Yeah, well, just, how do those two things correspond? And she said, I am good enough, aren't I? Sounds like it. So that's a very simple, we're not having to dig too deep there, but it was a way of countering that belief of I'm not good enough. And it was something that she had talked about before. It wasn't something that just popped into her head. Mm-hmm. So it was quite a deeply held belief. And maybe, she was overthinking things and comparing herself to other people. Interestingly, she was comparing herself to the person that had done the role before her.
Right.
And said that he was well respected and people liked him and he's good at his job. I said, you worked under him. I said, what score would you give him? She said, 7.
Wow.
I said, so you're an 8, he's a 7, and you're thinking you're not good enough. So it was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, and you managed to challenge someone's belief that isn't actually grounded in reality. It strikes me that it was more of an emotional belief, if you like, than a thought through, quantifiable.
Yeah, so there wasn't really any critical thinking going on.
No.
She was just, I'm not good enough. And just kind of living that, really. And every time a problem came up, that's because I'm not good enough. Just relating everything to her lack of ability. When actually she's working in a complex environment. There's lots of external pressure on that environment. So things are going to come up, aren't they? Problems are going to arise that she's having to deal with that are not necessarily of her making, but she's attributing the fact that she's got problems to her not being good enough, which isn't true.
No.
So I think challenge your beliefs is a key part of critical thinking. I think another aspect is challenging assumptions. So there's a lot of information coming to us from the coachees. We are going to listen to their story. They tell us story. We don't know within that story what's true and what's not true. What's a possible truth and what is just a plain assumption.
That's a really good point. Not all evidence is equal.
No, because we don't know what is evidence, do we?
No. And we need to help our coachees assess the story they're working with. So if someone's considering a career change, they may have ideas about what it's like to work in a particular field, for example. But how reliable is that information? Is it based on what other people have told them? Is it based on assumptions that they've made? Or is it based on real experiences that they've had? And helping them to evaluate this evidence can be really useful.
Yeah, so that's really about helping them make informed decisions, isn't it? So, if we can guide them to weigh up the pros and cons of a situation, the risks and rewards, and really look at the data that they've actually got. Let's find out what their story, where the data is, what that data is, and then how they can use that to make decisions rather than just jumping to conclusions. And I think within that, we can also look at what data is missing. So I was coaching someone yesterday who said, I need to make a decision. And it was, she described it as a first world problem, but there was a decision to be made. And she said, I'm having a meeting on Friday where I'm going to look at the situation with someone else and I'm going to find out about their scenario and maybe move towards them. I said, okay, so it sounds as though there is missing data that you're going to obtain on Friday. And it's not possible at this stage to make a decision because you don't have all the information. So we talked about what other information she could gather before Friday so that when Friday comes and if she's pushed to make a decision on Friday, she's got all the other information as well.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because when people have data gaps, they tend to fill it in with their thoughts and their feelings and their imaginings. And I suppose they might say educated guesses, but still it's a guess.
Yeah. And sometimes decisions have to be made without all the information. So that's difficult. But if we're talking about critical thinking, then we have to gather as much data as we can and analyze the data and come to our best decision based on the information we have available at the time.
Yeah. Like making sure we check TripAdvisor before we book a hotel.
Change the Budweiser.
Making sure we check TripAdvisor.
Oh, check TripAdvisor.
Should we
I misheard that. No, that's fine. Let's keep it in. So, change the Budweiser. No.
So not what I said.
Check TripAdvisor. Yeah, but sometimes that doesn't work either, does it?
No.
But, we're doing your due diligence, I guess, is what we're talking about, isn't it? So for this lady, she could have easily, had she not had the coaching, she could have easily gone along to this meeting on Friday, been pushed to make a decision, made the decision without checking out another situation which would have informed that decision, which she has the opportunity to do between now and Friday. She just hadn't thought to do it.
Yeah. So I think another key part of critical thinking in coaching is helping to build perspective, see things from new perspectives. And I think that's a lot of where the magic happens, especially when someone's stuck in a particular way of thinking. Expanding their perspective, looking at things from different angles can be really useful.
So yes, perspective taking, I think, is one of my favourite parts of coaching, that encouraging of people to look at things from different perspectives. So the work we do in a Gestalt approach is very much about that. I love doing empty chair work where we get someone to sit in someone else's chair and talk as though they're them, or to imagine someone, like an ornament in the room looking in on the conversation. What would that be noticing about the conversation? So things like that, where we are taking a different perspective, can be, as you say, quite magical.
Proverbial fly on the wall.
Yeah, I don't like flies. I never become a fly on the wall. I never invite my coaches. Someone said, you said to become the mirror behind me. I'd much rather be a fly on the wall. I said, yeah, I really don't like flies. I'm never going to do that. Sorry. Personal preference, but yeah.
Dirty, aren't they?
They are, really. Who wants to be a fly on the wall?
So how do you think we as coaches cultivate critical thinking in our practice? What are some of the strategies that work for you?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to use generative questions, ask generative questions that encourage that deeper reflection. So questions like, what do you know to be real about this situation? If we just heard someone's story, they're saying it as though it's all real, aren't they? So just, what do you know to be real? Or, what assumptions are you making? I think sometimes people can, when you first ask them, can be a little bit,
I'm not making any assumptions.
But most people will go, well, okay, well, I am assuming this. So I think there's a risk in asking those questions that you could break rapport. But my experience is that people generally will understand that within what they're talking about, there are some assumptions being made. So I think that the type of question doesn't just encourage that surface level thinking. I think it pushes them a bit deeper to really examine their thoughts and beliefs.
And I guess it's not just about asking questions, but about creating a space where they feel comfortable to reflect and to challenge their own thinking. And it isn't just about solving problems. It's about creating environments where the coachee feels empowered to think critically and to think about their decisions and make new decisions.
Yeah. So, no, I think the safe space is really important. Them feeling like they can be open with you and that you're not going to, said before, you're not going to sit in judgment of them. I think challenge is really important. Just being able to notice within what's being said. So let's say they're telling you their story. They have a monologue that they've rehearsed with other people elsewhere, and they come and they tell their story, and you notice at the beginning they say something, and then halfway through they contradict what they said at the beginning. And I think just being able to pick that out and go, I notice you said this, and then later on you said this. How did those two things fit together? So we can do it in a very gentle way, but I think being willing to challenge what is clearly not true in some respect. There's clearly an inconsistency there, but we do it in a way that It gets them to think about it rather than going, well, that can't be true, can it? Because you said that earlier. Whoa. So we're not going to do that, but we can challenge in a gentle way.
Definitely. And we can also use coaching models and frameworks to help structure their thinking. So Tom's Code is a great coaching model to allow people to think through their situation clearly, ensuring all angles are considered, and to actually get to a conclusion. And that's an important aspect of critical thinking, isn't it? Arriving at a decision that's been well thought through.
Yeah. And, the decision, whatever decision you make, there could have been a different outcome had you made a different decision. So as long as you've given it due consideration and you've made your decision with all the information you have at your disposal, you can't be criticised for making a decision. You have to go with the knowledge you have at the time, weigh it up. So I think other tools, so like a simple pros and cons list could be helpful. We talked on a previous podcast about the Cartesian coordinates of asking, what would you have if you decided that, and what would you not have? And then what would you have if you didn't decide that, and what would you not have? So looking at it from different angles. But also there's a type of pros and cons list which weights each pro and con with a ranking. So it's a more complex pros and cons list, but it's called force field analysis. Ooh. So you end up with a score for all the different pros and cons, and figure out which of those is important to you. Because you could do a pros and cons list where you've got 20 cons, but most of them are trivial, and then you've got half a dozen pros, but they're really important. Yeah. So it's not much point in having a pros and cons list and just going by the longest list. So that's another way of doing it. I think there are some challenges when it comes to critical thinking within the coaching room. I think sometimes that could be our own biases as a coach, because we all have them. We all bring our own values, experiences, perspectives into the coaching relationship. So we need to be aware of how that might shape our questioning. So I think, critical thinking requires us as coaches to step outside. I mean, we're going to try and do that anyway as coaches, aren't we? Step outside our biases and make sure we're encouraging our coachees to think for themselves. But I think it's just something we have to be aware of, that we will have our own thoughts around the situation. So we just have to stay out of the coachee's way and let them get on with it.
And also one of the big challenges of critical thinking are that some areas aren't all logical. No,
absolutely. And obviously critical thinking is very much about the logic of it, analysis, data. But yeah.
And then when you've done the critical thinking, I think you still have to think, how do I feel? How does this make me feel?
Yeah, well, I think you could do it either way, couldn't you? So you work a lot with intuition and gut feeling, which is fine up to a point. So you go, well, where do you feel that in your body? All that lovely stuff, which I think tells us something, but it's not the whole picture. So then if we do that and then go, okay, let's do some critical analysis of that. Let's do some critical thinking around it. Let's look at the data and the logic. Now, you might still decide to go with your gut.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Simon Sinek, in his kind of Start With Why, talks about the fact that we really make decisions based on our limbic system. Like that connecting with what's important to us on an emotional level. That's what all advertisers do.
That's what they rely on.
They don't give us the data on why we might choose their car, do they? They show us flashy images and... Yeah.
Skincare. Like if you look at the data in the small print.
Skincare to do with cars.
Well, advertising. 5 people thought this was great. Brilliant. Yes. That's the data. That's the data. But what you've heard is this is going to make you look 10 years younger.
Yeah. Good. So yes, I think the critical thinking part is useful and important, and we want people to make informed decisions. But it's not everything. I think there is that element of our decision making that is always going to be based on emotions and gut feeling. And we have to listen to that as well.
Absolutely.
One thing that just came to me then is that critical thinking can sometimes feel quite uncomfortable for the coachees.
Yeah.
So us challenging assumptions and just going, what? Is that true? You know, and reflecting back maybe deeply held beliefs that are problematic. That can be quite challenging for coachees. They might feel a bit uncomfortable in that space, and they might not want to spend a lot of time there. And obviously, if you are doing some critical thinking, it wants to be quite a thorough process.
Yeah.
So I think being prepared for coachees to have some discomfort, and you being comfortable with their discomfort, and still encouraging them to continue. And yeah, you'll get coachees who go, oh, well, I'll think about that later, and try and skip away from it.
Yes.
And I used to just take me back to having guitar lessons, and my tutor would say, "Oh, you just do that then, just play that," and I'd struggle to play it, and I go, "I'll practice that later," because it was hard.
But I think when we get it right, critical thinking is so empowering for coaches. It helps them develop the skills they need to make informed decisions in the future. And it helps them to challenge their thinking. And that's something that stays with people. And ultimately their ability can help them in the future, can create change for them in the future. And the decisions they make on the back of that critical thinking really can have lasting change for them.
Yeah, it's one of those, you can't know whether people will take their learning from the coaching room and apply it elsewhere. But hopefully that's part of the coaching ethos, isn't it? We're equipping them with the resources to be able to think for themselves and take that thinking away and do without us in the future. I still think talking it through with someone is incredibly useful and important, but if they learn how to work with pros and cons, force field analysis, if they...
or if they know they can come back to coaching and have a critical conversation again and know that that's a space where they do really good thinking, that's empowering, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, I think that's a good place to pause.
Let's pause there. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been really interesting.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
And next time, we're going to be talking about...
The interrupting leopard.
The interrupting leopard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying no more. I'm going to leave it there.
Excellent.
Hopefully it will lure people in with that.
Is this your wildlife videos on Facebook?
Enigmatic title. They interrupt a lot of leopards. I realise watching wildlife movies, they do something they're prone to doing.
Interesting. Okay, well, if you want to hear about the interrupting leopard, then do subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And maybe give us some feedback on your platform.
5 out of 10. Oh no, 5 out of 5.
5 out of 10.
Don't give us 5 out of 10. 5 out of 5. 5-star review. Do that. Nearly.
I'm going to say bye for now.
Bye for now. See you next time.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.